Hi everyone, welcome back to Story of the World Chapter Highlights. I'm Sophie teacher and today we're going to be talking about Chapter 6 of your Story of the World 4. Okay, so now lots of different things happen in our chapter today. Namely, we're in America this time, okay? So it's going to discuss North America and South America, okay? So let's get started at the very start of our chapter, okay? Now, if you remember at the very start of our chapter today, we're in South America. Specifically, we're in Paraguay, which is a very small country between Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay. Now, at this time, Paraguay was governed by Carlos López. He was the president of Paraguay. Now, Carlos had worked quite hard to make Paraguay a very peaceful and affluent place. Carlos had a son called Francisco. Now, when Francisco was 26 years old, his father sent him to France. Francisco had been very spoiled in his life, okay? So when he went to France, he loved it. He loved all the luxury and all the expensive things that were there, okay? So Francisco came back to Paraguay and he told his father, I really want Paraguay to be like the French Empire. That was his dream. His father was a little worried about that, okay? His father said, please be diplomatic. Please keep Paraguay a happy, safe country. But Francisco really had other plans. So once Carlos had died and Francisco became the leader of Paraguay, he still had this dream, okay? He still really had the dream of wanting to be like the French Empire. Now, at this time when Francisco had become president of Paraguay, down over in Uruguay, there was fighting over who should be in charge of Uruguay. So there are two different generals. There was one general and then another general called General Flores. Now, General Flores had the support of Brazil, which is a huge country, okay, in South America. General Flores ended up becoming in charge of Uruguay, okay? Now, Brazil had made this choice, and Francisco didn't like that. He didn't like that in South America, a big country like Brazil could have so much say. It made him nervous, okay, and he really didn't like it. General Flores went on to rule quite a lot of South America, okay, including Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay. So Francisco really didn't like this idea. He was like, I want to put a stop to this. I want to stop all these big countries from having so much power. So what he decided to do was he thought, what are some ways I could battle against these big countries? And he realized that countries like Brazil and Argentina, they had boats, but the boats were very big and they were steam powered, which meant in very shallow water, they didn't do very well. They needed deep water to work. So Francisco went, okay, I'm going to sail down the river into Argentina, and then I'll be easily able to go in and out in my smaller boats. So that's what he did. He went down the river into Argentina with around 50,000 soldiers, and he decided to do battle. He went in and out in the rivers. He did an amazing job. But unfortunately for him, General Flores and Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay, all under him, was stronger. This altogether was called the Triple Alliance. Okay, so that is the group together of Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay. So General Flores wasn't happy. He's like, I'm not having someone attack my land. So what he did was he went further up the river behind Francisco and he blocked the path back to Paraguay. So Francisco was stuck, okay? He was stuck on his way to Argentina and he couldn't get back to Paraguay. He was stuck there for around a year. He was landlocked and not able to get back in his country. During this year, around 20,000 of his soldiers died, specifically from cholera, okay, which was a disease that spread very quickly at that time. There was also lack of medicine, a lack of food, and their guns weren't good either. So he lost around 20,000 men at this time. Finally, Francisco was able to get back into Paraguay, and for the next 3 years, he defended himself against the Triple Alliance with his last few remaining soldiers. Unfortunately, at this time, Francisco started to go a little crazy. He started to lose his mind. and he started to kill those closest to him, his family and his generals, which made it really easy for General Flores and the Triple Alliance to come into Paraguay and to take over. They killed Francisco and they were able to take Paraguay, okay, 3 years later. And Brazil took some of the land and Argentina took some of the land. That's what happened in South America at this time, okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the second part of our chapter, okay? Now, if you remember, the second part of our chapter was in North America this time, okay? So we're switching areas. Specifically, it's going to talk about Canada. Now, if you remember at this time, Canada was split into 2 sections. So it's a little strange because it's the other way around, but we have Upper Canada here and Lower Canada here. At this time, this was how Canada was split up. Upper Canada was mainly English speaking, so a lot of British descendants of the colonies there. Lower Canada up here was mainly French speaking. And they were allowed to keep that. They were allowed to speak French. They were allowed their culture and customs, okay? But they were all still ruled by the monarchy in Britain, okay? Great Britain. Now, some people, especially in Lower Canada, were getting a little angry because in each area there was a British governor, and the British governor made all of the final decisions. And people didn't like that, especially the French citizens of Lower Canada. They said the British are having too much say on what we do, okay? So this guy here, Louis Papignon, okay, he wasn't happy. So he traveled all the way around Lower Canada and he told people we should stand up for ourselves, okay? We should have more right to vote and more right of a say on what we do. And the British shouldn't have that much of a say. So people really like this idea. They were like, yeah, we do deserve more of a say of what happens, okay? So what happened was all the people who listened to him ended up joining together and forming the Patriots, which were a group of people who believed that the British had too much power. They were making too many final decisions. So the Patriots and the British ended up going to like war or fighting each other, okay? They ended up fighting each other. And they all went into Lower Canada to do that. So a lot of the British army and military here went into Lower Canada to fight the Patriots, okay? Now, at this time, we have William Mackenzie. William Mackenzie was a citizen of Upper Canada, okay? He was a descendant of immigrants from Scotland, okay? And he also said, I think we are Canadians now. We need more say in what happens to us, okay? So he thought this is the perfect time to go and steal the seats in Upper Canada, to rise up and rebel. So William decided to do that, okay? Now, Louis, when the British and Patriots were fighting, he started to regret his decisions. He didn't want people to fight. He didn't want war, okay? He really didn't like that. So he ended up fleeing across the border into America. Now, William, as he went to Upper Canada and he was ready to take over the government seats, he actually realized a lot of people of Upper Canada were happy with the British rule. They wanted some changes, but overall they were happy with what they were getting with the British rule, okay? So when William walked into Upper Canada, he was met with a lot of resistance. A lot of people weren't happy. So Louis and William both fled across the border to America. They both left the country. Okay, that's what happened. Now, in England, they were a little worried. The monarchy was, what's happening in Canada? Will they rebel again? What will happen? So they sent this man, the Earl of Durham, into Canada. And the Earl of Durham looked around. He's like, okay. These people are happy with our rule, but changes need to be made, okay? The British governors have too much say and too much final say. So he's like, we need to give Canada, the people in Canada, more power. So what happened was all the areas in Canada, it became one country. So Upper Canada and Lower Canada became one. And each area was split into what we call a province, kind of like a county or provinces you have in Korea. Still at this time, there was a lot of British people still making decisions, okay? So this one area called Nova Scotia went, okay, let's elect some assembly members and we can have more say. The Canadians can have more say. And the Canadians liked this. They were happy. They were scared about being annexed by the United States, becoming another state, okay? So they were really happy that the British rule was still there. So what they did was they made the British North American Act. And this meant that in each area, people were voted in and there was an assembly there was a British governor, there was assembly members who were all Canadian, and they had more decisions. They had more choices, okay? And this is when Canada became the Dominion of Canada. Now, if you remember, Dominion just means a country that has independence, but it is still ruled by royalty. In this case, the British Crown. All right, well done, everyone. That was chapter 6. See you next time.